In 1998, the country was in turmoil. It was a state of emergency, and political repression was rife. On this campus, there was also conflict. Students were protesting broadly against apartheid, but also internally against the law faculty. The student body was on strike, boycotting lectures, because of a conflict that emerged from the law faculty, where the dean and an old guard of professors were in conflict with the students. In 1980, and at that time, there was a community law centre, the original one, which had two components, a legal aid clinic and a research component. And the aim of the research component was to think about the future of the country, the future constitutional dispensation. But the dean at that time said, but that's not legal research. We only look at black letter law, not at politics or constitutional law. That's politics. So he stopped that component from the Community Law Centre from coming into operation. The director then was John Murphy, who is currently a judge in the Gauteng High Court. Jakes Harrell, who was the rector then, asked me, and I just arrived here as head of Department of Public Law, to write a constitution for the research component part of the Community Law Centre. And this is what I then did, and named that the Community Law Centre, and the Legal Aid Clinic would then operate under the name of the Legal Aid Clinic. So even in 1989, we have already identified Dalla Omar as the future director. He was a leading intellectual here in the legal fraternity and amongst the people in the struggle. They frequently met right around this table, and they had then intense discussions on a variety of topics. Of the topics that was also canvassed during conferences and seminars were the electoral system, which eventually shaped what it would be, the proportional representation. There were discussions on the structure of government, what to do with provinces. Particularly, Bridget Mabandla was tasked with what to do with the old homelands, and what are the technical and administrative headaches of reintegrating them into South Africa. The Community Law Centre opened its doors in 1990, actually in June, and this was the place, the offices space that the university gave the Community Law Centre. Dalla Omar was the first director, and his office was through there. The other members had to be crushed and squeezed into the office right here. Only two offices were given to the Community Law Centre. Now, the importance is of the members that were appointed from internally in South Africa was Bulelani Ngcuka, as was assistant to Dalla Omar. And then with the unbanning of the ANC, they were joined by Zola Squia, which I think was then chairperson of the ANC Constitutional Committee, and Bridget Mabandla, who was there at the ANC desk on women. And she started the project on women and also on children. At that stage, they had a secretary, Sunita Dala, and they used some students. Johan Metler was one of them, and they assisted in the early days of doing research work for the centre, and they continued working for the Community Law Centre after they completed their degrees. And on the 30th of April, if I remember correctly, Kader Asmal burst through that door and said, "Where is Dalla?" And I said, "He's probably in his office." And we went in and told him, Dala, Mandela just announced over the radio that you are the Minister of Justice. So we broke the news to him, and there was a great smile. Two persons in the same passage new cabinet minister, because Kader Asma was also then appointed as Minister of Constitutional Development. So we started the process of recruiting researchers who were interested in working in the areas that were already identified as core areas for the centre. Our first appointment was Julia Sloth-Nielsen, who took charge of the Children's Rights Project. The second person was Sandy Liebenberg, who were concerned with women's rights. Two from the four then full-time researchers were appointed as technical advisors to the Constitutional Assembly. I was appointed to Theme Committee 4, which dealt with Theme Committee 2, which dealt with the structures of government, provincial and national, and Sandy Liebenberg was appointed to the committee dealing with the Bill of Rights. Particularly important was the litigation with regard to socioeconomic rights, in particular the right to housing. I think of the leading case of Grootboom, which dealt with shelter for persons who are rendered homeless. Other important decisions, the Constitutional Court decisions that we were involved with, was the Treatment Action Campaign regarding the right to health care. During the latter part of 2000, we were increasingly spreading our wings to look at issues in other countries in Africa which are we were going through constitutional reform or the reform of their laws. And I particularly think here on juvenile justice, where our persons, researchers, Julia Sloth-Nielsen in particular, were instrumental in redrafting child justice laws in East Africa, Mozambique, and so on. Then we also have the projects on prison reform, where Lucas Munting took the project into many African countries to examine prison conditions and advise how to improve prison conditions. We also were attracting at that time students for doctoral studies and in the area of socioeconomic rights, children's rights and multi-level government. So over a period of time we had a footprint in almost 20 African countries. Our value is to provide insights, deep analysis that would stand scrutiny. And I must say, over the past 20 years, our research has never been doubted or criticized for lacking in thoroughness, innovation, and applicability. And what you never shy away from this role of being a watchdog for the Constitution and have that conversation with government.